Greetings from Los Angeles. Greetings from Los Angeles County. Greetings from the West Coast. Greetings from not Tokyo, but on the other side of the world or close to it. This is Daisuke, and I very, very much hope that this video finds you well and in very, very good spirits wherever you are in the world. And today, if you don't mind, I would very much like to continue on with our discussion with respect to this wonderful series known as Twin Peaks. And specifically, I'd like to focus our attention today, as we have done in the most recent discussion videos on Twin Peaks, regarding the missing pieces, which is right here. There's a freeze frame section right here on the television behind me. And so what I'd like to do is, as per usual, I'd like to continue on with this discussion. Again, I don't hold myself out to be a Twin Peaks expert, and I will make a lot of mistakes along the way. I'll try not to, but I know I will, so I apologize in advance for that. Also, I should say that I won't be discussing anything specifically beyond this missing piece. Everything prior to and leading up to this missing piece is fair game. So the pilots, seasons 1, seasons 2, Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me, any of those episodes in there, that's fair game, but nothing beyond this, and that includes no missing piece beyond this. So that's for the benefit, especially of those who have still yet to complete your own Twin Peaks journey. So I want to respect that as much as possible. And last but not least, of course, this is an ongoing discussion. And again, I'm not the expert. I'm not the be-all, end-all when it comes to Twin Peaks. So part of the fun is always talking about this stuff with you, my dear friends. So if that's okay, let us continue that discussion going forward. And with that, we have this next piece, which is now Laura is returning home after kind of abruptly leaving the house. And here we have another scene between Sarah and Laura. And Sarah is now upset because Sarah realizes that Laura left for reasons other than what she said. Remember, she said that she was trying to get some books, but Sarah finds out that indeed those books were in the room. So how can that be? She must have gone out for another reason. And Laura's upset. Why was she in her room? And Sarah mentions about a blue sweater. So that's an interesting connection. Again, it's interesting whenever there's any type of discussion of Twin Peaks, there's always this idea of colors. So whenever colors are mentioned, that's something to keep an eye out for. So I think, yes, here we have the context of a blue sweater. Where have we heard the color blue before? Right, in the context of Twin Peaks and Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me. The blue rose, for example. So again, is there or is there not a connection between a blue sweater and a blue rose? Again, I don't want to make any concrete suggestions right now. It's just, again, it's interesting whenever colors are mentioned in the world of Twin Peaks. Also, it's interesting to note that Sarah was in Laura's room, which is perhaps a very innocent thing. Of course, it's the Palmer household, and the mother, being part of that household, would normally go into the rooms of her daughter and maybe other parts of the house. So it's not an outside extraordinary event, but still it's interesting to note, again, the room, Laura's room, being a very secretive place from Laura Palmer's perspective for reasons that we are now privy to, having watched Fire Walk with Me and indeed many of the key episodes of the TV series. So that's also something to keep in mind in terms of Laura's reaction. And Laura and Sarah now have another opportunity to bond. Laura gives the excuse about seeing Bobby and how she realizes that Sarah might not like Bobby. But again, there is a warmth between mother and daughter here, even though there is this moment of anger when Sarah smashes on the piano keys with cigarette in hand. It's interesting to note whenever Sarah is smashing things around the household, that's maybe an interesting point to keep in mind and consider going forward. But here, that also gives way to a genuine sense of warmth between mother and daughter. And as I was mentioning before, these moments between parent and child, mother and daughter, especially Laura Palmer and Sarah Palmer, they come very rarely in the world of Twin Peaks because of how the story of Twin Peaks starts with the death of Laura Palmer and the discovery of the body of Laura Palmer. So we don't get these moments. And when they do occur, sometimes they're very dark indeed. Think about the moments with the Palmer household as depicted in Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me. Therefore, as I was mentioning before, moments like this of a type of warmth between Sarah Palmer and Laura Palmer are very lovely indeed, which is one of the reasons why I think The Missing Piece is in particular, or for example, this piece is a very wonderful one indeed. This next missing piece is again carrying on this wonderful tradition that we're beginning to see established with the missing pieces, namely seeing the warmer sides of the Palmer household and seeing, I think, the potentially lovely aspects of a mother-daughter and father and daughter and indeed the family overall. And this is where Leland Palmer returns home. We see the stomping, or we hear the stomping. Where's my axe? I'm hungry. And we also get this almost play acting from Leland Palmer. Leland Palmer, it's very interesting what Leland Palmer does here with this play acting that starts this missing piece in terms of the dinner table. Sarah Palmer, Laura Palmer seem a bit taken aback, although they're not overly shocked by this. So this seems like a pretty, or possibly a pretty regular occurrence in the Palmer household, who knows. Also, it's of course very interesting to keep in mind that Leland Palmer and Bob, oftentimes we have differences in personality shifts. And oftentimes when we saw Leland Palmer in past episodes, as Bob, or Bob as Leland Palmer, depending on one's perspective, oftentimes you'll see the look and demeanor on the face, some body movement or body language changes, the tone of the voice seems to change. It's interesting to note that there aren't that many differences between how Leland Palmer is acting himself here. Where's my axe? I'm hungry. And the way that we see Bob / Leland Palmer in a lot of the scenes in the earlier episodes. Again, I'm not suggesting that Bob is here at this very moment. He could be, I'm not sure. But it does seem to be a genuine Leland moment. But it's interesting to note, again, how much of the Leland persona is there when Bob is there? How much of what Bob is adopting as a Leland persona is Bob? How much is Leland? That's part of the discussion, I think. It's always fascinating in the context of Twin Peaks discussions overall. And I think this provides maybe not any direct clues per se, but just maybe a hint or a whiff or something in the air to suggest how much is Leland and how much is Bob. In any event, one could look at this and say, yes, we are dealing with Leland because of the warmth and tone of this particular scene. The mentioning of the Norwegians in terms of the real estate deal, that's coming into play. That reminds us of how Twin Peaks opens in terms of the first season and Leland's role in that. And also we have the use of language here and type of way in which the repetition and use of language is another way for the three of them as a family to bond, and another moment for genuine warmth and laughter, which indeed we see here. The note to the appearance of the axe, which seems to suggest a type of outdoor sensibility, also perhaps an axe as a type of weapon. Maybe there's a hidden veiled threat in the air, who knows. There's a lot of mixed messages here, but I think those mixed messages serve a really wonderful function, that is also buttressing or otherwise engaging the overall conceit of this, which I think is genuine warmth in the family. Again, very few and far between these moments occur in the context of Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me or seasons 1 and 2 or the pilot, because again everything opens with the discovery of the body of Laura Palmer. So whenever we get these types of moments, that's really, I think, a cause for celebration, and that's one of the reasons why the missing pieces are so great the way they are. At least I feel that way. We get these genuine family moments, again with a hint of something maybe slightly off in the air here, there, with something that's said, maybe a little tremble in the air or tremble with the lights, the ceiling lights, the rumble of the floor as Leland Palmer moves, sort of deepness, roughness of the voice, but everything seems to be fine and dandy in the land of Palmer, so to speak. And I also like the way that they recite the language. It's an interesting thing. It's almost like they're reciting in a way that recalls, of course, how linguistics and language are very important in the world of Twin Peaks, especially when we think about the scenes involving the Black Lodge and backward speak. I'm not saying that they're mimicking backward speak here, but what I'm saying is that it is a reminder too of differences in language, differences in voice tone, etc. And that's also a very key part of Twin Peaks. What a great scene this is. Here is another missing piece, again showcasing yet another aspect of Twin Peaks, the underbelly or the dark side of Twin Peaks. This involves, of course, the relationship between Laura Palmer and Leo. Leo is mentioned here as Laura Palmer gets into this truck, and there is the suggestion of drug use. There's also the suggestion here of prostitution, and we are reminded of one of the very dark and ugly aspects of the society and community of Twin Peaks, namely, now there was this underside or this dark side, which also involved Laura Palmer in some degree or another, engaging in prostitution and also in the sort of the drug scene. Of course, reminding us of her relationship all the way back with Horn Department Store, but also her more immediate relationship here with Leo. And again, Leo is mentioned here, I think, by name. So again, another dark reminder of things in the dark, in the shadows that are operating. Whilst there is the semblance of peace in the air, there's also the semblance of danger and chaos, as exemplified or as hinted at by this particular mood piece here in the Missing Pieces. And here we have one of the great missing pieces. I mean, they're all great, but here's an example here. It's great to see Dale Mibler back in this form. It's also great to see Josie Packard back. And also it's great to see Pete Martell back as well in this wonderful scene at the sawmill. And of course, Mr. Mibler is talking about a 2x4. He wants a 2x4. And Josie seems to be very concerned about his request because he's a customer. But of course, the 2x4s are not exactly measured 2 inches by 4 inches, as Pete tries to explain in a very calm and professional manner. But it's not getting through to Mr. Mibler. So this creates, I think, one of the great sequences in the Missing Pieces. I want a 2x4. Incidentally, I've always been a fan of Mr. Mibler, and I've always been a fan of those great glasses of Mr. Mibler. And also, it's, as I mentioned before, with all the stuff that happened in season 1, in particular season 2, with these characters, with all these 3 characters that we see on screen. I mean, a lot have happened in terms of death and destruction. It's great to see them kind of back in the fray. Of course, there are a number of characters that we didn't see in Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me. We didn't see Josie directly. We didn't see Pete Martell directly. We didn't see Mr. Mibler directly. But now we see them here in all their living glory. And so that's a wonderful thing, too, about the Missing Pieces, is that we get to meet familiar faces that we perhaps didn't necessarily get the chance to meet directly when we were watching the film Fire Walk with Me. That's not, again, a knock against the film, because again, I'm on record saying that I am a huge fan of Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me. But it is wonderful to get this warmth and this wonderful scene and this miscommunication. You know, one of the things about David Lynch is the idea of miscommunication. One character speaks one thing, but another character in the same scene is on a totally different plane of understanding. And so there's a disconnect. And it's that disconnect that leads to a sense of absurdity and surrealism, or not of absurdity, and that leads to comedy or comedic situations, and sometimes it can lead to quite horrific situations. Here we have a very wide disconnect between Mr. Mibler and what he wants, and then Pete, what he is trying to explain to Mr. Mibler, excuse me, about the 2x4 and the aspect of the 2x4. Excuse me. So he wants a 2x4. He really wants a 2x4. But of course, Pete comes back with the wonderful explanation about how at the bank, you know, it's the same thing at the bank and the dollar, and how a dollar is not worth the same as it used to be. This is the way that he gets to Mr. Mibler, and Mr. Mibler understands immediately what this means. The dollar is not worth what it used to be. So 2x4 is, but it's not really a 2x4, but it still is a 2x4. And he apologizes. And so this is the beautiful thing about David Lynch and David Lynch, Mark Frost, Twin Peaks, is the idea of the establishment or understanding that there are divides between characters, and oftentimes those divides can cause comedic mishap, such as this scene arguably is. But when the connection between these two characters occurs, it is such a beautiful thing. And I just want to say, Mr. Mabler's understanding, his realization, he gets it, he understands, and he apologizes. That is one of the warmest moments. It goes by very quickly. Almost you blink and you miss it. But the fact that it's here and the fact that it's included, and it's also an opportunity to see Pete in action, because Pete now is showcasing his expertise in terms of the 2x4, and he's helping Josie, who is also, it's great to see Josie in this human moment because she's showing genuine concern about Mr. Mibler's request for getting a 2x4. And she doesn't want to get in trouble with the police and everything like that. So it shows a type of charming innocence, an innocent quality to Josie and her reaction. So there's some real genuine moments here. There's a lot of disconnect, but there's still genuine moments. This is the beauty of David Lynch. This is the beauty of Mark Frost. This is the beauty of Twin Peaks. It's all right here as an example. What a great sequence this is. And bravo. Here we are continuing with more missing pieces where we're reacquainting ourselves or meeting familiar faces. So this is the scene that is part of the final version that we see in Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me in the diner, and it's a wide shot or a shot from above where Laura is essentially trying to help out with the Meals on Wheels, and Shelley is asked to help. Shelley suggests, or she hesitates for a moment, but then we see that Norma convinces her to do so, or essentially orders her to, maybe passively orders her to help Laura out because Heidi's got the bloody nose, and we see her shot there. So this part is included in the film Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me, because then we see the moment where Laura is outside and she sees Mrs. Tremond and the young boy, and the idea of the painting. I mean, or the picture. That's not part of what we see here in this missing piece, but that's part of the overall effect. So that's how we can understand that this missing piece somehow or other fits into the configuration that is Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me. But what's interesting, or what's another thing that's interesting about this missing piece, is that we do get more of Norma. We do get some close-ups of Norma. We didn't get some close-ups of Norma before in Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me as much as we do here. So we get that because we understand too that at this moment Ed and Nadine came into the diner, and Nadine shows some very visible distress or duress or being upset when she sees Norma there, and she storms out. And then Ed seems visibly shaken as well, and he has to go out and take care of the situation, leaving Norma behind in the diner. Shelley, of course, observes this, and Shelley goes outside, and we also see Laura agitated, we assume, or if we understand from Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me, this is probably to do with having seen the Mrs. Tremond and the young boy outside. But of course, now returning to this missing piece, we see Norma visibly upset. We also see Norma and her haircut, and she's upset, but we see Ed returning. And this is the moment where this is, again, a kind of reaffirmation of their love and their bond, and that Ed apologizes to her and said that they will meet again later. And so here, another great moment in the world of Twin Peaks, The Missing Pieces. More characters that we are re-meeting or reacquainting ourselves with. Of course, we know Ed, we know Nadine, we know Norma. It's another sort of peaceful / maybe not so peaceful day in the world of Twin Peaks, as they say here, kind of quiet, So, but it's not wonderful to see Norma. It's wonderful to see more of Shelley. It's wonderful to see Ed and Nadine, Heidi, and the like. So, and also to see more of these aspects of Twin Peaks that we understand and got to know a lot of, especially in seasons 1 and season 2, but weren't part of the equation when we got to Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me. There was nothing there directly related to Ed and Nadine, Norma. We did see a little bit of Norma in this shot, or some of these shots, but not everything. So it's great to see this filled out in a way that, again, harkens back to these wonderful moments and plots and subplots from the world of Twin Peaks. An example of that being the story of Ed and Norma. Next, I want to speak about this wonderful missing piece. This is wonderful for a number of reasons. First, we get a snippet of this moment where Laura goes to Donna at her house, and Donna consoles her after being very, very upset. There's a very intense moment that happens in Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me that shakes Laura to her very core, and she runs to the first person, the only person at the moment where she can find solace. That's Donna, and we get the moment of her being consoled at her house. Here we get a type of extension of this moment or scene, which is quite lovely. You know, we get the we get the extension of the moment between Donna and Laura, and Donna expressing type of dismay and worry that there is a distance between them, and that she's scared that they're maybe drifting apart, and she's almost at the verge of tears. But Laura, in turn, consoles her. Now, this is so great because this is so Donna. This is so Donna. And Lara Flynn Boyle, of course, she is not the original actor who portrayed Donna in the series. And so I think there's a lot of WTF in terms of, is this really Donna? This is a different actor. What's going on? But it's a scene like this that really reminds us that, yes, this is Donna. And I tried to make the point during our Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me discussions about how feeling similar yet not similar, and that's part of the flow of Twin Peaks and watching Twin Peaks. And the actual casting of Lara Flynn Boyle in that moment is actually genius in my viewpoint. But with that being said, it's also great to see reminders of Donna, the character Donna, and it's sequences like this that harken back to the series and that remind us too of Donna. And this is maybe the most season one like Donna that we get from Lara Flynn Boyle's performance, which is so great. And that's also augmented too by the appearance of parents. Doc Hayward is here, and Mrs. Hayward is also appearing with the muffins with 7 whole huckleberries in each muffin. There's an equal amount of huckleberries in each muffin, which is great. And also that leads to sort of personification of who is the muffin. I'm the muffin, which is how the scene closes out here. And there is some very interesting interplay with Mrs. Hayward and Doc Hayward. There's an interesting situation involving a prescription or a piece of paper with a message that's suggestive of angels, and the wonderful music kicks in, and Laura is visibly moved by this. And of course, this is reminding us perhaps of many things, including what happens at the end of Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me and the actual appearance of an angel. Whether Doc Hayward is actually cognizant of this fact or not, yeah, it's one of the interesting mysteries of the missing piece. It's a beautiful moment from Doc Hayward. Also a beautiful moment from Doc Hayward is the magic trick, and he appears at the room there, tries to pull out what he describes, I think, as a red rose. It's not a blue rose, but it's a red rose, and he says it didn't quite work. And he mentioned Sparkwood and 21, the light at Sparkwood and 21. It seemed to work there, but not here. And he mentions that to Laura. Sparkwood and 21 is a pretty significant place. It's going to be a significant place with respect to Laura and James, of course, and in terms of characters, say, reappearing and disappearing. It's interesting that Sparkwood and 21 is mentioned by Doc Hayward in the context of a reappearing or disappearing red rose. Not a blue rose, but a red rose. So anyway, it's an interesting magic trick. It would have been interesting to see Doc Hayward perhaps try this magic trick next to, say, the contortionistic jazz exotica at the Miss Twin Peaks contest. But anyway, maybe that's for another alternate dimension. In any event, we have the message. We have some more discussion earlier on in this missing piece between Donna and Laura. Again, frank discussions. The line between innocence and type of adulthood. And here Donna mentions a little bit about Mike and having sex with Mike, and asking Laura about this. And so there is this line between kind of risque discussion and the innocence of the high schoolers here. So a lot of things are happening here. It's a very rich emotional scene. Laura storms out and she screams, "I'm the muffin," which is, I think, kind of a cry out for help, as well as a kind of absurd line. Again, so apropos in this world of Twin Peaks. So wonderful, so fitting, so great. So Donna, so much the Haywards. Doc Hayward is back. Mrs. Hayward is back. The Huckleberry Muffins galore, as well as a further solidification or further establishment of the wonderful relationship between Donna and Laura. This is one of the key relationships of Twin Peaks. It's wonderful to see it return in the form of this missing piece. So it's wonderful to see this.